April 1945, Okinawa, Japan. The bloodiest battle of the Pacific War was raging on a 400-foot cliff the Americans called Hacksaw Ridge. Japanese soldiers were dug into caves and bunkers at the top. American soldiers were trying to climb up and take the ridge. The casualties were catastrophic. Hundreds of men were being shot, blown apart, burned alive. And in the middle of this hell, one man was running back and forth, not shooting, not throwing grenades, just dragging wounded soldiers to safety, one by one, over and over, for 12 hours straight. His name was Desmond Doss. He was a medic, and he refused to carry a weapon, not because he was a coward, but because of his faith. He was a Seventh-day Adventist. He believed in the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill." Everyone thought he was crazy. His fellow soldiers mocked him. His commanding officers tried to discharge him. They said he'd get everyone killed. But Desmond Doss proved them all wrong. He saved 75 men in one night, without firing a single shot, and became the first conscientious objector to win the Medal of Honor. This is his story. Desmond Doss was born in 1919 in Lynchburg, Virginia. His family was poor. His father was a carpenter who struggled with alcoholism. His mother was deeply religious. Desmond's mother raised him as a Seventh-day Adventist. She taught him the 10 Commandments, especially the 6th, "Thou shalt not kill." She taught him that all human life was sacred, that taking a life was a sin, no exceptions. Desmond took these lessons seriously. As a teenager, he worked as a carpenter like his father. He was quiet, gentle, kind. He helped neighbors, volunteered at church, never got into fights. Then December 7th, 1941 happened. Pearl Harbor. America entered World War II. The entire country mobilized. Young men were enlisting. Patriotic fervor swept the nation. Desmond wanted to serve his country. He believed in the American cause. He wanted to stop the Japanese and Germans, but he had a problem. He couldn't kill. His faith absolutely forbade it. So in April 1942, Desmond walked into an army recruitment office and said something the recruiter had never heard before. "I want to enlist as a combat medic, but I won't carry a weapon. I won't train with weapons. I won't kill anyone. My faith forbids it." The recruiter thought Desmond was insane, or a coward trying to avoid real combat, but Desmond was neither. He wanted to serve. He wanted to be in combat. He just wanted to save lives instead of taking them. The army had a classification for this, conscientious objector. But most conscientious objectors were assigned to non-combat roles, desk jobs, supply duties, far from battle. Desmond refused that. He demanded to be a combat medic, on the front lines, where soldiers needed him most. The army didn't know what to do with him. They'd never had someone like this before, someone who wanted to fight but wouldn't carry a gun. Eventually, they decided to let him try. If he couldn't handle basic training, they'd discharge him. May 1942, Desmond arrived at Fort Jackson, South Carolina for basic training. He was assigned to Company B, 307th Infantry Regiment, 77th Infantry Division. From day one, his fellow soldiers hated him. They saw him as a coward, a weakling, someone who would get them killed in combat. They called him names: coward, yellow belly, fake Christian. During rifle training, Desmond stood to the side. Everyone else fired M1 Garand rifles. Desmond just watched. The drill sergeant screamed at him, called him worthless. But Desmond wouldn't touch a gun. During bayonet training, everyone else stabbed practice dummies. Desmond refused. The sergeant ordered him to participate. Desmond politely declined. The sergeant threatened to court-martial him. Desmond said, "Sir, I'll accept court-martial before I violate my faith." His fellow soldiers made his life hell. They stole his boots before morning formation, messed up his bunk so he'd fail inspection, threw his Bible on the floor. One soldier even punched him. Desmond didn't fight back, just picked himself up and kept going. But Desmond excelled at medical training. He learned anatomy, first aid, how to stop bleeding, how to treat burns, how to perform emergency procedures under fire. He was the best medic trainee in his company. His company commander, Captain Glover, was impressed but frustrated. Desmond was an excellent medic, but how could they send an unarmed man into combat? He'd be a liability. Captain Glover tried everything to discharge Desmond. Psychiatric evaluations, claims of mental instability, nothing worked. Desmond passed every test. A military psychiatrist interviewed Desmond, asked him, "Say, do you want to go into combat if you won't defend yourself?" Desmond answered, "Sir, I believe that men will be dying, and they'll need someone to save them. That's what I'm trained to do, save lives, not take them." The psychiatrist concluded Desmond Doss was completely sane, deeply religious, absolutely committed to his beliefs, fit for duty. The army had no legal grounds to discharge him. Over time, some soldiers started respecting Desmond. He never complained, never fought back, never broke. He helped anyone who needed it, fixed equipment, volunteered for extra duties, lived his faith every day. One soldier who'd bullied Desmond approached him and said, "Doss, I was wrong about you. You're tougher than most of us. I don't understand your beliefs, but I respect them. When we get to combat, I hope you're nearby." Desmond smiled and said, "I'll be there. That's a promise." July 1944, the 77th Infantry Division shipped out to the Pacific. Their first assignment, help recapture Guam from Japanese forces. July 21st, 1944. Desmond landed on Guam with his unit. This was it, real combat. Japanese bullets, mortars, artillery, everything that could kill him, and he had no weapon to defend himself. Within minutes of landing, a soldier was hit, screaming for a medic. Desmond didn't hesitate. He ran toward the wounded man, bullets hitting the sand around him, everyone else taking cover. Desmond just ran forward. He reached the wounded soldier. The man had been shot in the leg. Femoral artery hit, bleeding out. Desmond applied a tourniquet, stopped the bleeding, gave morphine for pain, then dragged the soldier to cover. The other soldiers watched in amazement. This man they'd called a coward was running into enemy fire, unarmed, saving lives, over and over. During the Guam campaign, Desmond treated dozens of wounded soldiers. He ran toward danger when everyone else ran away. He worked under fire without flinching. He saved lives while others took them. There's a story, never fully confirmed, that a Japanese soldier had Desmond in his sights. Perfect shot, could have killed him easily. But the Japanese soldier saw Desmond treating wounded Americans, saw he was unarmed, and didn't fire. The Japanese soldier later told prisoners that he couldn't bring himself to shoot someone who was clearly just trying to save lives. After Guam was secured, Desmond's unit had a completely different attitude toward him. They no longer saw him as a coward. They saw him as the bravest man in the company, unarmed, unafraid, always there when someone was hurt. Desmond wrote home to his wife Dorothy, "I've proven to myself and others that I can serve my country and my faith at the same time. The men respect me now. They know I'll be there when they need me. That's all I ever wanted." October 1944. The 77th Division was sent to the Philippines to participate in the liberation of Leyte. The fighting in Leyte was brutal, dense jungles, swamps, monsoon rains, and Japanese forces fighting from entrenched positions. The Americans took heavy casualties. Desmond worked in conditions most medics would call impossible. Waist-deep in swamp water, rain pouring down, leeches everywhere, enemy fire constant. He treated wounds, administered morphine, kept soldiers alive long enough to be evacuated. One night, a soldier was hit by a Japanese sniper, 50 yards from American lines, calling for help, too dangerous to retrieve during daylight. Desmond waited until night, then crawled out into the darkness, found the wounded soldier, treated him, and dragged him back, all in complete darkness. During the Leyte campaign, Desmond treated over 100 wounded soldiers. His uniform was permanently stained with blood. His hands were raw from crawling through mud and jungle. He lost weight, got malaria, but never stopped working. For his actions on Leyte, Desmond was awarded the Bronze Star for valor. The citation read, "For heroic achievement in action against the enemy." Private First Class Doss distinguished himself by repeatedly exposing himself to enemy fire to treat and evacuate wounded soldiers. His courage and dedication saved numerous lives. When they pinned the medal on him, Desmond said, "I don't deserve this. I was just doing my job. Every medic out here is doing the same thing." But everyone knew Desmond was different. He wasn't just doing his job. He was doing the impossible. April 1945, the 77th Division was assigned to the invasion of Okinawa. This would be the bloodiest battle of the Pacific War, the final stepping stone before invading Japan itself. April 1st, 1945, Easter Sunday, the invasion began. Thousands of ships, hundreds of thousands of soldiers, the largest amphibious assault in the Pacific. The initial landing was surprisingly easy, light resistance. The Japanese were using a new strategy. Instead of defending the beaches, they'd fortified the interior, waiting to bleed the Americans dry in a war of attrition. April 29th, 1945. The 77th Division reached a cliff formation the Americans called Hacksaw Ridge. It was a 400-foot escarpment, sheer cliff face. At the top, Japanese forces had created a fortress, caves, bunkers, artillery positions, machine gun nests. Taking Hacksaw Ridge would require climbing up cargo nets thrown over the cliff face, under fire, exposed. It was a suicide mission. Everyone knew it. Desmond prepared for the assault. He packed extra bandages, more morphine, sulfur powder for infections. He knew this would be bad, worse than anything he'd experienced. The captain briefed the company. "We're going up that cliff at dawn. It's going to be hell. Stay low, move fast, and pray you make it to the top." Then he looked at Desmond and said, "Doss, you stay back. We can't risk losing our best medic in the initial assault." Desmond said, "Sir, with respect, I'm going up with the first wave. That's where the wounded will be. That's where I'm needed." The captain knew better than to argue. Desmond was going up that cliff whether he was ordered to or not. April 30th, 1945. Dawn. The assault on Hacksaw Ridge began. American soldiers climbed the cargo nets, hand over hand, 400 feet up a sheer cliff. Japanese soldiers at the top waited until Americans were halfway up, then opened fire, machine guns, mortars, grenades thrown down the cliff. Americans fell screaming, hitting the ground below, or caught hanging in the nets, dead or wounded. Desmond made it to the top. Immediately he saw wounded everywhere, a soldier with his leg blown off, another shot through the chest, a third with shrapnel in his face, all screaming for medics. Desmond ran to the nearest wounded man, applied a tourniquet, stopped the bleeding, then dragged him to a position with slight cover, then ran to the next wounded soldier. The Japanese were dug in. Every time Americans advanced, machine guns cut them down. The ridge became a killing field, bodies everywhere, wounded men crying out, smoke and explosions constant. By mid-morning, the American assault had stalled. Too many casualties, too much enemy fire. The order came, retreat back down the cliff, evacuate the wounded. They'd try again later. American soldiers began climbing back down the cargo nets, getting off the ridge before they were all killed. But the wounded couldn't climb down. They were trapped at the top, and the order was clear, everyone down, now. Desmond looked at the wounded men, 20, maybe 30, all unable to move on their own. If they were left behind, Japanese soldiers would kill them or they'd bleed out. Either way, they'd die. Desmond made a decision. He wasn't leaving. He was staying on Hacksaw Ridge, alone, while his entire unit retreated. He would get those wounded soldiers down the cliff, every single one, or die trying. By noon, every American soldier had retreated except Desmond Doss. He was alone on top of Hacksaw Ridge. surrounded by Japanese positions, with dozens of wounded men who couldn't move. Desmond grabbed the nearest wounded soldier, dragged him toward the cliff edge. The soldier was heavy, dead weight. Desmond weighed maybe 140 pounds, but adrenaline and determination made him strong. At the cliff edge, Desmond rigged a rope system. He tied a double bowline knot, something his father had taught him in carpentry, made a sling for the wounded soldier, then lowered him down the cliff face, hand over hand, 400 feet down. At the bottom, medics received the wounded soldier. They were shocked. Who was lowering soldiers down? Everyone had retreated. Then they realized Doss hadn't left. He was still up there. Desmond ran back across the ridge, Japanese bullets kicking up dirt around him, mortars exploding. He reached another wounded soldier, dragged him to the cliff, lowered him down. Between each rescue, Desmond prayed, quick prayers. Lord, help me get one more, please, just one more. One more became two more, two became five, five became 10. Japanese soldiers watched through binoculars. They saw this lone American running back and forth, unarmed, just dragging wounded soldiers. They could have killed him easily, but something stopped them. Maybe they respected his courage. Maybe they thought he was insane. Either way, they let him work. Desmond's hands were bleeding, raw. Rope burns from lowering soldiers down. His uniform was soaked with blood, his and others. He was exhausted, dehydrated, but he kept going. The sun was setting. Desmond had been working for 12 hours, alone, under fire. He'd lost count of how many soldiers he'd lowered down, 20, 30, 50. He didn't know, he just kept going. Finally, as darkness fell completely, Desmond lowered the last wounded soldier down the cliff. He'd done it. Every wounded man who could be saved had been saved. Desmond stood at the cliff edge, completely exhausted. He could barely stand. His legs were shaking. His hands were bleeding. His body was shutting down from exhaustion and dehydration. But he still had to get down. Desmond grabbed the cargo net, started climbing down. His hands could barely grip. His arms had no strength. He climbed down 400 feet in complete darkness. Somehow, he made it to the bottom. At the bottom, Desmond collapsed. Soldiers caught him, carried him to a medical tent. He'd been working for 15 hours straight, without food, without water, under constant enemy fire, alone. The next morning, officers counted how many wounded soldiers Desmond had lowered down the cliff. They started at 50, then 60, then 70. The final count, 75 wounded soldiers. Desmond Doss had saved 75 men in one night, alone, unarmed, under fire. It was impossible, but he'd done it. Soldiers came to thank Desmond, men whose lives he'd saved. They shook his hand, cried, said, "You're the bravest man I've ever met." Desmond just said, "I was doing my job." Any medic would have done the same. The captain said, "No, Doss. No other medic would have done that. You stayed when everyone else left. You saved lives when any sane man would have saved himself. You're not just brave, you're extraordinary." The army began documenting Desmond's actions, interviewing witnesses, verifying the count, building a case for the highest military honor, the Medal of Honor. A few days later, Desmond was back on Hacksaw Ridge. The battle wasn't over. Americans assaulted the ridge again and again, and Desmond was there every time, treating wounded, saving lives. On May 5, 1945, a grenade landed near Desmond while he was treating a wounded soldier. Desmond threw himself over the wounded man, shielding him with his own body. The grenade exploded. Shrapnel tore into Desmond's legs and lower body. 17 pieces of shrapnel. He was badly wounded, in tremendous pain, but he'd saved the other soldier's life. Other medics ran to help Desmond. For once, he was the patient instead of the medic. They treated his wounds, prepared to evacuate him, put him on a stretcher. As they carried Desmond toward the evacuation point, he saw another wounded soldier, more badly hurt than him. Desmond insisted they stop. He got off his stretcher, made the bearers take the other soldier instead. Desmond said he could wait. Desmond sat against a tree, bleeding from 17 shrapnel wounds, waiting for another stretcher. His wounds were serious, but he'd given up his evacuation spot for someone who needed it more. While waiting, a Japanese sniper shot Desmond. The bullet shattered his left arm. Now he had 17 shrapnel wounds and a fractured arm. He was in danger of bleeding out. Desmond grabbed a discarded rifle, the only time he ever touched a rifle in combat. He used it as a splint for his broken arm. Then he crawled 300 yards to safety, treating himself the entire way. Finally, another stretcher arrived. Desmond was evacuated. His war was over. He'd survived barely, but he'd saved countless lives. Desmond spent months recovering in military hospitals. His arm healed but would never be the same. The shrapnel wounds left permanent scars. He also contracted tuberculosis, which would affect him for the rest of his life. In September 1945, Desmond received a letter. He was being awarded the Medal of Honor, the highest military honor America can give. He would receive it from President Harry Truman himself. October 12, 1945, the White House. Desmond Doss, still recovering from his wounds, stood before President Truman. President Truman placed the Medal of Honor around Desmond's neck. The citation read, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action above and beyond the call of duty, Private First Class Desmond T. Doss refused to kill or carry weapons into combat because of his personal convictions as a Seventh-day Adventist. He was a company aidman when his unit sustained heavy casualties while assaulting Hacksaw Ridge in Okinawa. Doss refused to seek cover and remained in the fire-swept area to aid the wounded. He treated 75 men, carried them one by one to the edge of the escarpment, and lowered them on a rope-supported litter down the face of a cliff to safety. President Truman shook Desmond's hand and said, "I'm proud to award this to you. You're the bravest man I've ever met." Desmond replied, "Mr. President, I was just trying to live my faith and serve my country. Any man could have done what I did." Desmond became a national hero. Newspapers across America covered his story, the conscientious objector who won the Medal of Honor without firing a shot. It was unprecedented, impossible, and completely true. Desmond returned home to Virginia. He married his longtime sweetheart, Dorothy Schutter. They built a simple life. Desmond worked as a carpenter and plumber, never sought attention, never bragged about his service. When asked to speak about his experiences, Desmond always emphasized faith and service. He said, "I didn't do anything special. I just tried to live according to God's commandments and help people when they needed it. Anyone can do that." Desmond lived until 2006. He died at age 87. Throughout his life, he remained deeply humble. He donated his Medal of Honor to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. He spoke at churches and schools about faith and service. Many of the men Desmond saved kept in touch with him. They called him their guardian angel. At his funeral, several attended. They told stories about the night Desmond saved their lives, about the medic who ran toward danger when everyone else ran away. Today, there's a memorial on Okinawa at Hacksaw Ridge. It commemorates Desmond Doss and the 77th Infantry Division. Japanese and American veterans visit together. They remember the battle, and they remember the medic who proved that you don't need to kill to be a hero. Desmond Doss's story is one of the most remarkable in American military history. He faced mockery and hatred for his beliefs. He endured abuse from fellow soldiers. He was told he'd get people killed. Instead, he saved 75 lives in one night. Without firing a single shot, he proved that courage isn't about violence, it's about conviction, about doing what's right even when everyone says you're wrong. The Medal of Honor citation says he acted above and beyond the call of duty. But Desmond never saw it that way. He was just living his faith, serving his country, helping people who needed him. Desmond Doss proved that one person, armed only with faith and determination, can make an impossible difference. He didn't kill a single enemy soldier, but he saved 75 American soldiers. And he showed the world that the greatest warriors aren't always the ones who fight. Sometimes they're the ones who heal. That's the legacy of Desmond Doss, the conscientious objector, the unarmed hero, the man who saved 75 lives without firing a single shot.